Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to sit down with you and talk about one of the greatest achievements in the history of cinema, a film that still gives me chills every single time I think about it. Today we are diving deep into The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King from 2003, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why this movie is not just worth watching, but why it deserves to be experienced on the biggest screen possible, with the best sound system you can find, and preferably with friends who love epic stories as much as you do. Let me start by painting a picture for you. Picture this. It is December 2003. The lights go down in theaters around the world. And for the next 3 hours and 21 minutes, you are transported to Middle-earth like never before. This is the film that brought J.R.R. Tolkien's legendary tale to its breathtaking conclusion, and it did so in a way that changed filmmaking forever. Directed by the brilliant Peter Jackson, written by Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens, and based on the novel The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien, this masterpiece was produced by Barry M. Osborne, Fran Walsh, and Peter Jackson himself. New Line Cinema financed and distributed it, but every frame was created right here in New Zealand, Jackson's home country, where the entire trilogy was filmed back-to-back in one of the most ambitious productions ever attempted. The budget for The Return of the King was $94 million. Yes, you heard that right. But $94 million in 2003 money. That might sound like a lot, and it was, but when you see what they accomplished with that money, it feels almost impossible. The film went on to gross $1.148 billion worldwide, making it the highest-grossing film of 2003 and one of the biggest box office successes of all time. It proved that audiences were hungry for intelligent, emotionally rich fantasy on a grand scale, and it rewarded every single person who believed in Peter Jackson's vision. Now let us talk about the cast, because this is an ensemble that will live forever in film history. Elijah Wood returns as Frodo Baggins, bringing a quiet intensity and heartbreaking vulnerability that carries the emotional weight of the entire story. Viggo Mortensen is Aragorn, and watching him step fully into his destiny is one of the most satisfying character journeys you will ever witness on screen. Ian McKellen, as Gandalf the White, delivers wisdom, power, and warmth that make you believe in magic. Sean Astin as Samwise Gamgee gives what many consider one of the greatest supporting performances in film history, pure loyalty and heart that will move you to tears. Andy Serkis, through motion capture and voice, creates Gollum and Sméagol in a way that is so real, so layered, it still feels revolutionary 20-plus years later. Then we have Orlando Bloom as the graceful, deadly archer Legolas, John Rhys-Davies as the fierce and hilarious Gimli, Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd as Merry and Pippin, bringing lightness, mischief, and incredible depth to the hobbits. Bernard Hill as King Theoden, Miranda Otto as the brave Éowyn, David Wenham as Faramir, Carl Urban as Éomer, Hugo Weaving as Elrond, Liv Tyler as Arwen, Kate Blanchett as Galadriel, John Noble as Denethor, and so many more. Every single actor, whether they have 10 minutes or 2 hours on screen, feels completely lived in, completely authentic. These are not costumes and wigs. These are real people you come to care about deeply. Behind the camera, the craftsmanship is just as extraordinary. Andrew Lesnie's cinematography turns New Zealand's landscapes into locations that feel ancient and mythical. Jamie Selkirk edited the film with perfect pacing, balancing massive spectacle with intimate character moments. And then there is the music. Howard Shore's score for The Return of the King is the crowning achievement of one of the greatest film scores ever written. He brings back all the themes from the first two films, introduces the majestic Gondor theme, and builds to the emotional climax with the Oscar-winning song Into the West, performed by Annie Lennox with lyrics by Fran Walsh and Howard Shore. The London Philharmonic Orchestra, huge choirs, soloists like Renee Fleming, Sissel, and even actors Billy Boyd, Viggo Mortensen, and Liv Tyler contributing vocals on screen, it is a wall of sound that will lift you up and break your heart at the same time. The production itself is the stuff of legend. Principal photography ran from October 1999 to December 2000, with additional pickups in 2003, all while shooting the other two films at the same time. They built massive sets at Dry Creek Quarry for Minas Tirith, used the Putangiruwa pinnacles for the Paths of the Dead, filmed at Twizel for the Rohirrim Charge, and turned Matamata into Hobbiton. Weta Workshop, led by Richard Taylor and Peter King, created thousands of weapons, suits of armor, prosthetics, and creatures. Weta Digital handled 1,489 visual effects shots, nearly 3 times as many as the first film. They pioneered the massive software to create realistic battles with tens of thousands of digital soldiers, used real New Zealand Army soldiers as extras who got so into it they kept breaking the wooden weapons, and blended practical effects with digital work so seamlessly that you can never tell where one ends and the other begins. Costume designer Ngila Dixon and Richard Taylor gave each culture its own distinct look. Gondorian armor, inspired by ancient Númenórean designs. The Rohirrim with a more medieval European feel, and the elves with that ethereal, otherworldly elegance. Makeup and hair were so groundbreaking that they won Oscars, turning actors into completely believable dwarves, orcs, and even the terrifying King of the Dead. The film premiered on December 1, 2003 at the Embassy Theatre in Wellington, New Zealand, then hit theaters in the United States on December 17th and in New Zealand the next day. It was released in a theatrical version of 201 minutes, but the real treasure for fans is the extended edition that came out in December 2004 on DVD. That version runs 252 minutes. Some Blu-ray re-releases are listed at 263 minutes, adding over 50 minutes of footage, new music, new effects, 4 audio commentaries, and 6 hours of behind-the-scenes documentaries. If you have never seen the extended edition, you are missing out on an even richer experience. And then there are the awards. At the 76th Academy Awards, The Return of the King was nominated for 11 Oscars and won all 11 of them. Best Picture, Best Director for Peter Jackson, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Score, Best Original Song, Best Visual Effects, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Film Editing. It swept the night like no other fantasy film ever had. It also won Golden Globes for Best Drama, Best Director, Best Score, and Best Song, multiple BAFTAs, Saturn Awards, a Grammy, Hugo Award, Nebula Award, and so many critics' prizes. This was not just a commercial hit, and this was a critical triumph that forced Hollywood to take fantasy seriously. Why should you watch The Return of the King right now in 2026 when there are so many other options? Because it is the rare film that delivers absolutely everything. It has jaw-dropping scale, battles that still look better than most CGI-heavy movies made today. It has intimate, quiet moments between characters that will stay with you forever. It has themes of friendship, sacrifice, courage in the face of impossible odds, the corrupting influence of power, and the hope that even the smallest person can change the course of the future. It has humor. It has heartbreak. It has moments of pure awe. The performances are so committed that you forget you are watching actors. Now, the world building is so complete that Middle-earth feels more real than our own world sometimes. And the emotional payoff, after investing 9 hours or more across the trilogy, is unmatched in modern cinema. Even if you have never seen the first 2 films, though I highly recommend starting from the beginning, The Return of the King stands on its own as an epic conclusion that respects your intelligence, rewards your attention, and leaves you feeling profoundly moved. Peter Jackson has said that of the 3 films, this one was the easiest for him to make because it contained the climax of the entire story, and you can feel that confidence in every frame. There are so many small details that make it special. Peter Jackson himself has a cameo on a Corsair ship. But the credits end with a long list thanking members of the Lord of the Rings fan club. Andy Serkis not only voiced Gollum, but performed every scene on set so the other actors could react to a real person. The sound design is so immersive that you feel the ground shake during the big moments. The lighting, the color palette, everything was planned with obsessive care by concept artists Alan Lee and John Howe, whose paintings inspired the look of the entire trilogy. If you love movies that transport you, if you love stories that matter, if you love visuals that still hold up in 4K and HDR, if you love music that becomes part of your soul, then The Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King is waiting for you. Stream it, buy the 4K Blu-ray with the extended edition, gather your friends, turn off the lights, and let it wash over you. And I guarantee that when the credits roll and that final song plays, You will sit there in silence for a moment, feeling like you have just lived through something truly legendary. Let me share even more reasons why this film deserves your full attention and why it continues to stand tall more than 20 years later. The level of detail packed into every frame is astonishing. Take the costumes, for example. Gila Dixon and the Weta Workshop team handcrafted thousands of individual pieces, many with intricate engravings, real metal accents, layered fabrics, and historical influences that make each culture feel distinct and lived in. The Rohirrim armor has that rugged, horse-lord practicality with leather and horsehair details, while the Gondorian plate armor gleams with Númenórean elegance, and complete with removable helmets and functional joints so actors could actually move and fight in them for hours. Some suits weighed up to 40 pounds, yet the actors wore them day after day without complaint because they wanted authenticity. The same goes for the prosthetics. John Rhys-Davies endured hours in the makeup chair every morning for Gimli, and on his final day of pickup shots, he famously grabbed his heavy latex mask and threw it into a fire in celebration, a moment captured in the documentaries that shows just how committed everyone was. The locations deserve their own chapter. New Zealand wasn't just a filming spot. It became Middle-earth itself. The massive Minas Tirith set was constructed at the old Dry Creek Quarry near Wellington, where crews built 7 tiers of stone walls, gates, and a towering citadel over many months using real stone, plaster, and timber. For the enormous battle sequences, they used the wide-open fields around Twizel in the South Island, bringing in real horses, hundreds of extras, and even members of the New Zealand Army who got so enthusiastic during the charges that they kept splintering and breaking the wooden practice weapons provided for safety. The Paths of the Dead were filmed at the eerie Putangiruwa Pinnacles, a naturally spooky landscape that required almost no digital enhancement. Hobbiton, though seen more in the first film, had its final touches here too, with real gardens, working water wheels, and smoke from actual chimneys. The crew dealt with everything from scorching heat to freezing rain and mud that swallowed equipment. Yet Peter Jackson's multiple camera units kept rolling simultaneously across the country, sometimes filming different story threads on the same day. Visual effects reached new heights with Weta Digital. This film alone featured hundreds upon hundreds of complex shots, from massive armies created with the groundbreaking massive software that allowed each digital soldier to have individual AI-driven behavior, to seamless integration of miniatures for wide city shots, to creature work that brought terrifying foes to life. The practical and digital blended so perfectly that even today, in high-resolution 4K, you struggle to spot the seams. Richard Taylor's team at Weta Workshop also built enormous scale models, including detailed miniatures of Minas Tirith and the enemy fortifications, which were filmed with motion-controlled cameras to create those sweeping, epic establishing shots. They fabricated custom saddles and rigs for horse stunts to keep actors safe, like a quick-release mechanism for one intense dragging scene involving a horse and rider. The cast stories are endless and heartwarming. The 9 Fellowship actors got matching Elvish 9 tattoos as a permanent reminder of their bond. Viggo Mortensen treated the role with such seriousness that he trained with real swords, rode horses bareback, and even bought several of the weapons used in the film to keep as personal mementos. Sean Astin carried Elijah Wood across his shoulders for take after take in rugged terrain, refusing a stunt double because he felt it was important for the emotional truth of the moment. While Andy Serkis performed every single Gollum scene on set in a motion capture suit so that Elijah, Sean, and others could act opposite a real person instead of a tennis ball, which elevated everyone's performances. In fact, Peter Jackson gave both Andy and Elijah their own prop versions of a certain golden item from the story, and each believed theirs was the only one used in filming, a sweet little secret they later laughed about. Orlando Bloom did most of his own archery and horse riding, while Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan brought endless humor on set, often singing and joking between takes to keep spirits high during the long, cold nights. Howard Shore's score deserves hours of discussion on its own. He wrote over 13 hours of music across the trilogy, and for The Return of the King, he introduced soaring new themes for Gondor, the beacons, and the final march that feel both ancient and triumphant. Recording sessions happened in Wellington's Town Hall with the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, then moved to London with the Philharmonic and large choirs singing in fictional languages created by Tolkien experts. The emotional weight of pieces like the Rohan variations and the quiet Hobbit themes builds layer upon layer until the finale, where Into the West plays over the credits. Annie Lennox delivered that haunting vocal in a single emotional take, and the lyrics, co-written by Fran Walsh, perfectly capture the bittersweet end of an era. Several actors even sang on screen. Billy Boyd performed a gentle song in character, Viggo Mortensen added vocals in Elvish, and Liv Tyler contributed ethereal singing that still gives goosebumps. Post-production was a marathon, and Jamie Selkirk edited multiple versions simultaneously, balancing 3 separate storylines while maintaining tension and emotional rhythm. The sound department, led by Christopher Boyes and others, created immersive layers. The clang of swords, the distant roar of approaching forces, the subtle ring of mithril, creature vocalizations recorded from animals and processed creatively, and footsteps recorded on different surfaces for each character. The Dolby Digital EX surround mix in theaters made audiences feel surrounded by the world of Middle-earth. The film's cultural impact cannot be overstated. It not only swept the 76th Academy Awards with all 11 wins, a feat only 3 films had ever achieved before, but it also changed how studios viewed fantasy. Suddenly, epic, character-driven stories with deep themes were bankable. It boosted New Zealand's tourism dramatically, inspired a new generation of filmmakers, influenced everything from Game of Thrones to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of scale and interconnected storytelling, and created a global fandom that still gathers at conventions, rewatches the extended editions annually, and debates every detail. Peter Jackson went from a director known for quirky horror comedies like Bad Taste and Braindead to an Oscar-winning master, all because he believed in Tolkien's vision when almost no one else did. Even in 2026, the film holds up spectacularly. The 4K Ultra HD releases with Dolby Vision and Atmos sound are breathtaking. The landscapes pop with natural detail. The nighttime scenes have incredible depth, and the score envelops you completely. The extended edition, running a full 263 minutes, adds rich new scenes, deeper character moments, expanded world building, and hours of bonus features, including 4 audio commentaries, making-of documentaries that total over 6 hours, and interactive maps. These extras alone could fill multiple evenings of viewing. Whether you're a longtime fan revisiting for the 100th time or someone new ready to begin the journey, The Return of the King offers catharsis, inspiration, and pure cinematic joy. It reminds us that courage comes in all sizes, that friendship can endure the darkest times, that leadership requires sacrifice, and that hope can be found even when everything seems lost. The film never talks down to its audience. It trusts you to follow complex emotions, multiple threads, and a fully realized world. That respect for viewers is rare, and it is one of the many reasons it feels timeless. If you're watching the theatrical cut first, you'll be on the edge of your seat for over 3 hours. If you go straight to the extended edition, you'll get an even more complete experience that flows beautifully. Either way, give yourself the gift of uninterrupted time, good snacks, and maybe a cozy blanket, because once it starts, you won't want to pause. If you're still here with me on this epic journey through one of the most legendary films ever made. We've already covered so much about The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, the cast that became family, the groundbreaking effects, the sweeping New Zealand landscapes that became living, breathing parts of Middle-earth, the unforgettable score that still echoes in our hearts. But there's even more to uncover. Little stories and details from behind the scenes that make this movie feel even more special every time you hear them. One thing that always blows my mind is how physically demanding this production was for everyone involved. Viggo Mortensen, our Aragorn, broke 2 toes during a scene where he kicked a helmet in frustration. Yes, that iconic moment when he kicks the orc helmet after the Uruk-hai attack. He kept going through the take because he thought it was just a stub, but the pain was real, and you can actually see the moment in the film where his reaction is completely authentic. He also nearly drowned during a river scene in the first film, but carried that same intensity into Return of the King, training relentlessly with swords and riding horses in full armor for authenticity. And the man lived the role so completely that he even kept his sword, Anduril, after filming wrapped. Then there's Sean Astin carrying Elijah Wood on his back through rough terrain for those grueling scenes near the end of their journey. He refused a double because he wanted the exhaustion and emotion to be genuine. Sam's loyalty isn't just words, it's felt in every strained step. Elijah himself has talked about how emotional the final days were. When his last scene wrapped, the entire cast gathered for tearful goodbyes, and it was one of the most heartfelt moments on set. The bond these actors formed over years of shooting back-to-back was unbreakable. Andy Serkis deserves endless praise for revolutionizing performance capture. He didn't just voice Gollum, he performed every scene physically on set. Wearing a motion capture suit dotted with markers, contorting his body into those twisted, tormented shapes, so the other actors had a real presence to interact with. Elijah and Sean have said acting opposite Andy made their scenes infinitely richer. They weren't talking to green screens or tennis balls. Peter Jackson pushed the technology to its limits, and the result was a character so lifelike that even today people debate whether Gollum feels more real than many live-action performers. The Army extras added such incredible energy. For the massive Battle of the Black Gate sequence, they brought in hundreds of real New Zealand Army soldiers. These guys got so into character that they charged with full enthusiasm, smashing the wooden prop weapons meant for safety. Talk about commitment. Peter Jackson loved it because it gave the battles that raw, chaotic feel you can't fake with just digital crowds. John Rhys-Davies, our Gimli, went through pure torture with the prosthetics. The heavy makeup caused constant skin rashes and infections, so on his very last day of pickup shots, the makeup team let him ceremonially throw his Gimli mask into a fire. He grabbed it without hesitation and burned it, a symbolic end to years of discomfort, captured on camera and included in the documentaries. It's such a perfect, cathartic moment that sums up the dedication of the entire cast. Peter Jackson himself popped up in clever cameos throughout the trilogy. In Return of the King, besides his obvious one on a Corsair ship, there's a fun one where, during a tense moment with Shelob, the arm holding the sword belongs to Peter because Sean Astin wasn't available for a pickup shot. The director literally stepped in front of his own camera to make it work. The extended edition is where the film truly shines for many fans. The theatrical version clocks in at about 3 hours and 21 minutes, a perfect epic length for theaters. But the special extended edition, released on DVD in December 2004, adds around 51 minutes of footage, pushing it to roughly 4 hours and 11 minutes. Some releases list it at 4 hours and 23 minutes, including extras, like the fan club credits at the end. These editions include richer character moments, deeper world building, and resolutions to threads that feel essential once you've seen them. Find things like an expanded opening with a key confrontation that ties up loose ends from earlier films, more insight into Gondor's struggles and history, extra celebrations and interactions among the heroes, and scenes that give side characters like Eomer powerful emotional beats. The pacing stays strong because Peter Jackson and his editors recut the whole thing thoughtfully, adding music cues and effects where needed. For home viewing, especially if you can pause and savor it over 2 nights, the extended cut is often considered the definitive experience. It feels more complete, more immersive, like reading the full appendices in Tolkien's books. The appendices on those DVDs are gold mines themselves. You get 4 separate audio commentary tracks, one with Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens sharing writing and directing insights. One from the design team talking about sets, costumes, and creatures. One from the production and post-production crew diving into logistics and effects. And one with the cast reflecting on their journeys. Then there are hours of making-of documentaries covering everything from concept art by Alan Lee and John Howe to the massive miniature work, the sound design layers that make every sword clash and creature growl feel tangible, and even how they handled the emotional weight of wrapping such a massive project. Awards-wise, we already touched on the historic 11 Oscars at the 76th Academy Awards in 2004. Best Picture, Director, Adapted Screenplay, Original Score, Original Song for Into the West, Visual Effects, Art Direction, Costume Design, Makeup, Sound Mixing, and Film Editing. It tied Ben-Hur and Titanic for the most wins by a single film. And it was the first fantasy movie to ever win Best Picture. That night felt like validation for an entire genre. It also cleaned up at the Golden Globes, BAFTAs, Saturn Awards, and more, proving that epic storytelling with heart could dominate awards season. Financially, the $94 million budget, shared across the trilogy but allocated heavily here for the climactic battles, turned into over $1.148 billion worldwide, making it the highest-grossing film of 2003 and one of the biggest ever at the time. Adjusted for inflation and re-releases, it still holds up as a massive success that showed studios' fantasy could be blockbuster gold without dumbing down the source material. Even now in 2026. When you pop in the 4K UHD version with HDR and Dolby Atmos, the film looks and sounds better than ever. The beacons of Gondor lighting up across the mountains, the charge of the Rohirrim at dawn, the quiet despair in quieter moments. All of it pops with incredible detail. The practical sets, the hand-painted miniatures, the real locations, they hold up because they were built with love and craftsmanship, not just pixels. This movie isn't just entertainment. It's a testament to what happens when hundreds of passionate people pour their souls into telling a story about friendship, hope, and standing against impossible darkness. Peter Jackson has said the theatrical cuts are his preferred versions for cinema, designed for that big screen rush, but the extended editions were made for fans who want to live in Middle-earth longer. Whichever you choose, the impact is the same. You'll walk away changed, inspired, maybe even a little emotional. So if you haven't revisited it lately, or if you've never gone for the extended cut, do it soon. Grab some friends, dim the lights, maybe brew some second breakfast, and let The Return of the King remind you why stories like this matter. You're still here with me? That means you're as passionate about this film as I am, and I love that. We've gone deep already, into the cast's unbreakable bonds, the insane production scale, the music that feels like it's part of your DNA, the awards sweep that shocked everyone, and those little production quirks that make the movie feel even more human. But there's so much more magic in the behind-the-scenes stories, trivia, and details that keep fans coming back year after year. But let's keep rolling through why The Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King isn't just a movie. It's an experience that keeps giving. One of the coolest things is how the film wrapped up in a way that felt almost poetic. The very last scenes shot for the trilogy, some additional pickup shots for the extended edition, happened months after the theatrical release, even after the Oscars. Peter Jackson has talked about how surreal it was to still be filming bits and pieces for Return of the King while the world was already celebrating it with 11 golden statues. Imagine winning Best Picture, and then heading back to set to grab a few more shots for the home video version. Talk about dedication to the fans. Speaking of the extended edition, let's talk about what makes it so special without giving anything away. The theatrical cut is a tight, pulse-pounding 3 hours and 21 minutes, perfect for the big screen. But the extended version adds about 51 minutes of footage, bringing it to around 4 hours and 11 minutes, or 4 hours and 23 minutes in some Blu-ray listings, including the long fan club credits at the end. These aren't just filler. They're thoughtful expansions that deepen relationships, flesh out the world's history, give side characters more powerful moments, and tie up threads in a way that feels complete. For example, there's an opening sequence that provides crucial context right from the start, extra glimpses into the struggles of key cities and leaders, more emotional beats during quieter times, and scenes that expand on celebrations and farewells. Peter Jackson and his team re-edited everything with new music cues from Howard Shore, additional visual effects, and seamless integration so the pacing never drags. It actually feels richer and more satisfying for home viewing. Many fans say once you see the extended cut, going back to theatrical feels like something's missing. If you're planning a rewatch, try splitting it over 2 evenings with breaks. It's like sinking into a long, rewarding novel. The appendices and making-of docs on those DVDs and Blu-rays are legendary in themselves. 4 full audio commentaries, one with Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens spilling on directing and writing choices. One from the design wizards talking sets, costumes, and creatures. One from production and post teams on the massive logistics. And one from the cast sharing personal reflections. Then you've got over 6 hours of documentaries covering concept art by Alan Lee and John Howe that literally shaped how Middle-earth looks. The miniature department building huge detailed models of cities and fortresses that were filmed with motion control for those sweeping shots. The sound team's layers of clanging metal, distant horns, and creature roars recorded from real animals and twisted creatively. It's hours of content that make you appreciate every frame even more. Trivia time. Some fun ones that always make me smile. The Fellowship actors all got matching elvish tattoos saying 9 to commemorate their bond. Permanent ink for a temporary job, but the friendship was forever. Viggo Mortensen's commitment was unreal. Besides breaking toes and nearly drowning in earlier films, he kept pushing for authenticity in every sword fight and horseback charge. Elijah Wood's final day on set was emotional. The whole cast gathered for tearful hugs because his rap marked the true end for the Hobbit's journey. Andy Serkis and Elijah were each gifted prop versions of that certain golden item, and both genuinely thought theirs was the only one used, Peter Jackson's little prank that kept the magic alive. The army extras for the final massive confrontation were New Zealand soldiers who got way too into it, enthusiastically breaking the safe wooden weapons during charges. Peter loved the energy because it added real chaos. John Rhys Davies' Gimli makeup caused such bad rashes that on his last pickup day, they let him dramatically toss his prosthetic mask into a fire, a cathartic end caught on camera. Peter Jackson sneaks into more than one cameo. Besides the obvious pirate ship one, there's a quick arm holding a sword in a tense spider moment because the actor wasn't available for a reshoot. The director literally filled in. Billy Boyd's beautiful, haunting song in a key scene? That came from Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens hearing him sing at a karaoke night and being blown away. They wrote it in for him. The closing credits feature hand-sketched portraits by Alan Lee morphing into the actors' photos next to their names, an idea Ian McKellen suggested that adds such a personal, artistic touch. Financially and culturally, this film changed everything. With a $94 million budget that covered the trilogy's climactic push, it grossed over $1.148 billion worldwide, crossing the billion-dollar mark and becoming 2003's top earner. Adjusted today, it's still a monster hit that proved fantasy epics with real emotional depth could dominate. It boosted New Zealand tourism. People still visit those filming locations like the pinnacles for the Paths of the Dead or the Quarry for Minas Tirith. It inspired countless filmmakers, from massive battles in later franchises to the way interconnected stories are told now. And the fandom? Conventions, annual marathons, endless debates. It's a living community. In 4K with HDR and Atmos, it looks stunning. The golden light on the fields during charges, the deep shadows in ancient paths, the score wrapping around you like a blanket. Peter Jackson has said the theatrical versions are his cinema cuts, built for that immersive theater rush, while extended are for fans who want to linger in the world. Both are brilliant. Both deserve your time. This film reminds us that even in the darkest times, small acts of kindness, loyalty between friends, and refusing to give up can turn the tide. It's hopeful without being naive, epic without losing the heart of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. If you've got kids old enough, watch it with them. It's a story about growing up, facing fears, and coming home changed. If you're alone, let it be your companion for an evening of pure wonder. You're incredible for sticking around this long. We're really deep into the heart of Middle-earth now, and I couldn't be happier to keep sharing why The Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King from 2003 remains one of the most awe-inspiring films ever created. When we've talked about the cast's incredible commitment, the production's monumental scale, the music that lifts your soul, the awards that changed everything, and those endless behind-the-scenes gems that make the story feel even more real. But there's still so much left to explore. More trivia, more heartfelt anecdotes, more reasons this film feels timeless even in 2026, especially with the trilogy's 25th anniversary celebrations bringing the extended editions back to theaters in premium formats for fans to experience on the biggest screens possible. Let's dive into some more fascinating production stories that show just how much love went into every detail. One thing that always stands out is how the cast turned grueling shoots into lifelong friendships. The 9 main Fellowship members, Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Viggo Mortensen, Orlando Bloom, Ian McKellen, Sean Bean, Dominic Monaghan, Billy Boyd, and John Rhys Davies, all got matching elvish tattoos of the number 9 as a permanent symbol of their bond. John Rhys Davies was the only one who opted out because of his severe skin reactions to the Gimli prosthetics. He joked it would have been too painful to add ink on top of everything else. But the gesture meant the world to the group. They were together for over a year of principal photography, facing rain, mud, cold nights on location, and endless hours in makeup, yet they supported each other like family. Viggo Mortensen's dedication is legendary, and Return of the King has its share of stories. While the famous broken toes from kicking the helmet happened in the Two Towers, his intensity carried through. He kept pushing for realistic swordplay and horseback riding, even in the massive final confrontations where safety was paramount. He treated every take as if it were the only one, living in character so deeply that it inspired everyone around him. Elijah Wood has shared how emotional the rap felt. When his scenes as Frodo ended, the set fell silent, and the cast gathered for hugs and tears because it marked the real close of their shared adventure. Andy Serkis continued to push boundaries with Gollum. His motion capture work was so innovative that it set the standard for everything that came after. He performed on set in the suit for every interaction, allowing Elijah and Sean to react naturally to a living, breathing presence instead of empty space. Peter Jackson even gifted both Andy and Elijah their own prop versions of that pivotal golden item. Each actor was convinced theirs was the authentic one used in filming, a sweet director's trick that kept the wonder alive long after cameras stopped rolling. The extras brought unbelievable energy too. For one of the climactic large-scale battles, hundreds of New Zealand Army soldiers were called in as extras. They got so immersed in the role that they charged with genuine fury, splintering the wooden safety weapons designed to prevent real injuries. Peter Jackson embraced the chaos because it gave the sequences that raw, unpredictable feel you can't manufacture digitally. John Rhys Davies' final day was particularly cathartic. After years of enduring painful rashes and infections from the heavy Gimli makeup, the team let him ceremonially hurl his prosthetic mask into a bonfire. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed it and tossed it in, a moment of pure release captured in the making-of footage that fans still quote as the perfect end to his ordeal. Even small cameos tell stories. Peter Jackson appears on a Corsair ship, of course, but there's another subtle one. In a tense encounter with a giant spider-like creature, when an arm reaches in holding a sword, it's actually Peter stepping in because Sean Astin wasn't available for the pickup shot. The director literally became part of his own movie to make it work. Billy Boyd's emotional song in a poignant moment? That wasn't planned at first. But Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens heard him sing casually on set or at a gathering, and were so moved they crafted the piece specifically for him to perform in character. His gentle, haunting voice adds such depth and heartbreak. The extended edition keeps getting more praise as the definitive way to experience the film. The theatrical version runs 3 hours and 21 minutes, a masterful epic paced for theaters. The extended edition adds roughly 50 to 53 minutes of footage, bringing the total to about 4 hours and 11 minutes, or up to 4 hours and 23 minutes when including the lengthy fan club credits that roll at the very end as a thank you to the community. Those added scenes aren't throwaways. They include deeper character resolutions, expanded world moments, additional emotional layers for supporting figures, and key confrontations that provide closure and richness. Peter Jackson and his team rescored and re-effected everything so it flows seamlessly. Fans often say the extended cut feels more faithful to Tolkien's spirit, with room to breathe in the quieter beats amid the spectacle. In recent years, especially around the 25th anniversary, theaters have screened these extended versions in stunning high-definition formats, letting audiences see the beacons lighting up mountains or the dawn charges with incredible clarity on massive screens. The 4K UHD releases from recent years elevate it even further. The remaster removes some unwanted color tints from earlier home video versions, sharpens details so you can see every rivet in armor or leaf on a tree, and HDR brings vibrant, lifelike colors to the golden fields, shadowy paths, and fiery skies. Paired with Dolby Atmos, the sound wraps around you. The thunder of hooves, the clash of blades, Howard Shore's soaring themes, all feel immersive like never before. Whether you're revisiting in 2026 during these special theatrical runs or at home, the film looks and sounds better than it did in 2003. This movie's legacy keeps growing. It didn't just win 11 Oscars in one night. It proved that fantasy could be profound, that long run times with complex emotions could captivate millions, and that practical craftsmanship combined with cutting-edge effects could create something eternal. The appendices and documentaries alone are a masterclass in filmmaking, hours of insight from everyone involved, showing the passion behind every frame. And you're an absolute legend for still being here with me. We've been on this incredible ride through The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King for what feels like hours now, and honestly, I could keep going because every time I think about this film, another beautiful detail or story pops into my head. We've covered the cast's tattoos and unbreakable bonds, Viggo's legendary intensity, Andy Serkis changing performance capture forever, the army extras going full berserker, John's fiery Gimli mask goodbye, Peter's sneaky cameos, Billy Boyd's surprise song moment, the extended edition's extra heart, the 4K glow-up, and the way this movie reshaped cinema and fandom forever. But let's keep the love flowing. There are still so many layers that make this film feel alive and personal even after all these years. One of the quietest and most touching things is how the film honors Tolkien's love of languages and history without ever feeling like a lecture. Every culture has its own distinct tongue. Western for the common folk, Sindarin and Quenya for the elves, Khuzdul for the dwarves, Black speech for darker forces, all created or expanded by Tolkien scholars working closely with the production. Howard Shore wove those languages into the choral pieces so beautifully that even if you don't understand the words, the emotion hits you square in the chest. The Beacons sequence, with its swelling choir and that iconic Gondor theme rising over the mountains, still gives me chills every single time because it feels like an ancient call to arms that's been waiting thousands of years to be answered. The design team at Weta Workshop didn't just make props, they built heirlooms. And take the swords. Every hero's blade had its own personality. Andúril, reforged from the shards of Narsil, was forged with real metal techniques inspired by historical blacksmithing, so it had authentic weight and balance. Sting, the Hobbit blade, glows blue because of practical LED inserts hidden in the prop that light up on cue. Glamdring, Gandalf's sword, has that elegant elven curve and runes that catch the light just right. Even the smaller weapons, like Merry and Pippin's short swords, were balanced perfectly, so the actors could swing them convincingly in battle without looking awkward. The armor wasn't just shiny plate. Many pieces had functional joints, leather strapping, and padding underneath so performers could actually fight for long takes without constant adjustments. The creature department deserves endless applause too. The Oliphants, those massive elephant-like war beasts, were partly enormous practical puppets with hydraulic legs and trunks operated by teams of puppeteers, blended with digital enhancements for scale and movement. The Mumakil handlers, the Haradrim warriors riding them, wore costumes with real chainmail and dyed fabrics that moved naturally in the wind. The fell beasts, those winged terrors ridden by the Nazgul, combined sculpted practical models for close-ups with fully CG versions for flight sequences, and the sound design layered eagle screeches, horse whinnies, and distorted human cries to make them truly nightmarish. Location scouting was almost mythical in itself. Peter Jackson and his team drove thousands of kilometers across New Zealand looking for places that matched Alan Lee and John Howe's concept paintings. And when they found the perfect spot for Minas Tirith at the Dry Creek Quarry, they didn't just film there. They built 7 tiers of city walls using real stone blocks, timber frames, plaster detailing, and thousands of hand-placed bricks. For the dawn charge of the Rohirrim, they chose wide plains near Twizel where the sun would rise exactly behind the riders for that golden backlight. Timing was everything, and they shot multiple takes at dawn over several days to capture the perfect light. The Paths of the Dead at Putangirua Pinnacles required almost no digital work because the natural rock spires and eerie atmosphere were already perfect. The crew just added fog machines and green screen elements for the ghostly army. The post-production sound mix is another unsung hero. And Christopher Boyes and the team layered thousands of individual effects. The metallic ring of mithril under strain, the deep rumble of approaching doom, the subtle wind through ancient trees, the crackle of beacons igniting one after another. They recorded real sword clashes on metal anvils, horse hooves on different surfaces for each culture's mounts, and even used slowed-down animal growls processed through filters to create orc and troll vocalizations that feel organic yet otherworldly. When you watch with good headphones or a surround system, you're not just hearing a battle, you're inside it. Culturally, the impact keeps rippling. The trilogy's success led directly to New Line Cinema, trusting Peter Jackson with King Kong next, and later the Hobbit films. It launched careers. Andy Serkis became the go-to for motion capture. Weta Workshop became one of the world's top effects houses, and New Zealand's film industry boomed with international shoots following in its footsteps. Fans still make pilgrimages to Hobbiton in Matamata, now a permanent tourist site with guided tours, or to the quarry where Minas Tirith once stood. Conventions host marathon screenings, cosplay groups recreate armor with incredible accuracy, and online communities dissect every frame, every line of dialogue, every musical motif. In 2026, with the 25th anniversary bringing those special extended edition theatrical screenings back in IMAX and premium large format venues, it's the perfect time to experience it big again. The image is razor sharp, the colors pop, the sound shakes the seats. It's like seeing it for the first time all over again. But with 20+ years of accumulated emotion making every moment hit harder, this film is proof that when hundreds of artists, technicians, and performers pour their hearts into telling a story about ordinary people facing extraordinary evil, about loyalty that refuses to break, about hope that flickers even in the deepest shadow, something truly magical happens. It's not just entertainment, it's medicine for the soul. If you're still hanging in there with me, thank you from the depths of my heart. You're basically part of the fellowship at this point. We've journeyed so far through The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, unpacking layer after layer of why this 2003 masterpiece directed by Peter Jackson remains one of the crowning achievements of modern cinema. We've celebrated the actors who became legends, the craftsmen who built worlds from scratch, the musicians who gave the story its heartbeat, the awards night that felt like destiny, and all those tiny, magical production moments that make rewatches feel brand new every time. But there's always more to share when a film is this rich. So let's keep going with even deeper appreciation and a few more gems that keep fans like us coming back decade after decade. One aspect that often gets overlooked is how masterfully the film balances spectacle with intimacy. Yes, the battles are colossal. Thousands of orcs clashing with men and elves, Oliphants trampling through lines, the sky filled with arrows like black rain. But Peter Jackson never lets the scale swallow the characters. In the middle of chaos, we get quiet, human moments, a hand reaching out in reassurance, a whispered promise between friends, a weary smile shared under starlight. Those beats are what make the epic feel personal. You don't just watch armies collide, you feel the fear, the hope, the exhaustion of the people inside the armor. That's rare in big-budget cinema, and it's one reason the emotional payoff lands so hard after investing in the whole trilogy. The lighting and color grading deserves special mention too. Andrew Lesnie's cinematography uses natural light whenever possible. Dawn breaking over the Pelennor fields, moonlight on ancient stone paths, firelight flickering across worried faces. The color palette shifts subtly with each culture and mood. Warm golds and greens for the hobbits' lingering hope, cool blues and silvers for the elves' ancient sorrow, fiery reds and blacks for Mordor's corruption. In the 4K HDR versions available today, those choices pop even more dramatically. The golden hour on the Rohirrim charge feels almost blindingly beautiful. The shadows in Minas Tirith's lower levels feel oppressively deep. It's visual storytelling at its finest. Another beautiful detail is how the film respects Tolkien's environmental themes without preaching. Middle-earth isn't just a backdrop, it's a living world under threat. The desolation around Mordor, the felled trees of Fangorn, even though that's more in the previous film, the consequences echo here. The contrast between the lush fields of Rohan and the barren ash plains, it all quietly reinforces the idea that war and greed scar the land itself. Yet there's always renewal on the horizon. White trees blooming again, fields ready to heal. It's hopeful without being simplistic, and it gives the victory at the end a deeper resonance. The practical effects hold up so well because they were grounded in reality. When actors ride horses into battle, those are real horses trained for weeks, with stunt riders and safety rigs designed by experts. The massive siege towers rolling toward the city walls, built full scale with timber and rope pushed by teams of crew members off camera, the catapults hurling flaming projectiles, real mechanisms firing weighted dummies that were later replaced digitally for safety and impact. Blending that physicality with Weta Digital's work creates a texture you can almost feel. The dust kicked up by hooves, the heat from explosions, the weight of steel on shoulders. Howard Shore's score keeps revealing new layers too. But listen closely and you'll hear how he reprises and evolves every major theme from Fellowship and Two Towers, weaving them together like threads in a tapestry until the finale feels like the culmination of a 9-hour symphony. The Gondor theme starts noble and proud, then grows desperate, then triumphant. The Hobbit themes, simple, folk-like melodies, return softer and wiser, carrying all they've endured. And that final vocal piece over the credits? Annie Lennox's voice floats like a gentle farewell, lyrics co-written by Fran Walsh that capture the ache of leaving one world behind and stepping into another. It's the perfect emotional capstone. For anyone watching in 2026, especially with those 25th anniversary theatrical screenings of the extended editions still fresh in memory or coming back in limited runs, the experience is electric. Hearing the audience gasp at the beacons igniting across the screen, feeling the subwoofers rumble during the charge, sharing laughter and sniffles with strangers who love the same story, it's communal magic. At home, the extended cut's extra 50-plus minutes let you linger. More time with characters saying goodbye, more glimpses of a world rebuilding, more quiet victories amid the grand ones. Many fans now prefer watching the extended versions as a 4-night event, one film per evening, savoring it like a long-beloved book. This movie has also aged gracefully because it was never trendy. It wasn't chasing the latest CGI fad or trying to be ironic or cynical. It believes in heroism, in friendship, in the idea that even the smallest person can carry the biggest burden and still come out the other side. In a world that sometimes feels dark and divided, returning to the return of the king is like coming home to a reminder that goodness, loyalty, and courage still matter. Thank you again for letting me ramble on and on about something that means so much to so many of us. We've covered an insane amount of ground, from broken toes and burning masks to beacons and symphonies, and I hope it's reignited your love for this film or convinced someone new to dive in. If any of these stories made you smile or tear up, share them in the comments below. What's the detail you love most? Do you have your own behind-the-scenes memory from a rewatch or theater experience? Are you team theatrical for the pace or team extended for the depth? Tell me about your plans. Maybe a full trilogy marathon this weekend, or showing it to a friend or family member for the first time. I'd love to hear. You're still right here with me, and that honestly touches me more than I can say. We've turned this into something way bigger than a simple review. It's become a full-on love letter to The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, a film that keeps proving why it deserves every minute of our time and attention. We've laughed about burning prosthetic masks, cheered for broken toes that became iconic, marveled at how real soldiers turned into cinematic warriors, and felt the warmth of a cast that became family forever. We've explored the music, the visuals, the extended edition's extra soul, the 4K glow, and the way this movie quietly changed the world. But there's always one more beautiful thread to pull when a story is this deep. So let's keep savoring it together. Let's talk about the quiet heroism that runs through every frame, the kind that doesn't need fanfare or explosions to shine. Think about the moments when characters choose kindness over despair, loyalty over self-preservation, hope over surrender. Those choices aren't loud. They're whispered in glances, in a hand on a shoulder, in refusing to leave someone behind, even when the world is falling apart. Peter Jackson understood that true epic scale isn't just about armies, it's about what ordinary hearts can endure and still choose light. That's why the film never feels hollow despite its massive runtime. Every sword swing, every step through ash and shadow carries emotional weight because we care so deeply about the people making them. The world building is so complete that Middle-earth feels like a place with its own history long before the camera arrived. Every ruin has a story, every banner a lineage, every landscape a memory. The white tree of Gondor, withered yet stubbornly alive, becomes a silent symbol of endurance that mirrors the characters themselves. The beacons aren't just pretty fire signals across mountains. They're a chain of hope passed from hand to hand, from peak to peak, reminding us that help can come from unexpected places if we're willing to look up and believe. In today's fast world, where everything moves at lightning speed, there's something profoundly comforting about a story that takes its time to let those symbols breathe. Another thing that keeps hitting me harder with every rewatch is the sound design's emotional intelligence. Beyond the obvious booms and clashes, there are tiny, perfect details. The soft creak of leather armor as someone shifts nervously, the distant echo of a horn that carries both warning and promise, the way footsteps change texture depending on whether they're on stone, grass, ash, or packed earth. Those layers make the silence between words feel alive. When characters stand together without speaking, The soundscape fills the space with unspoken understanding. It's filmmaking that trusts you to feel things rather than always telling you what to feel. For anyone discovering or rediscovering the film in 2026, the timing feels almost poetic. The 25th anniversary has brought renewed screenings, fresh discussions, and a new generation falling in love with Middle-earth exactly when the world could use a reminder of unity, courage, and the power of standing together. Whether you're watching alone with headphones cranked, sharing it with family on a big screen, or joining a theater full of fans who know every line, the experience still lands with the same force. The extended edition especially rewards patience. Those added scenes don't rush, they let relationships deepen, let victories feel earned, let goodbyes linger just long enough to hurt beautifully. This movie also reminds us that endings aren't always tidy, but they can still be hopeful. Not every wound heals completely, not every hero returns unchanged, but there's grace in carrying forward what matters most. Friendships forged in fire, small acts that ripple into legend, the quiet knowledge that even if the road ends, the memory of walking it together endures. That's the kind of closure that stays with you long after the credits roll, and Into the West fades into silence. If you've been watching along with me through all these videos, maybe pausing to rewatch a scene we just talked about, maybe pulling up the extended cut right now, I hope it's reignited that same wonder you felt the first time. And if you're new here, welcome to one of the most rewarding cinematic journeys ever made. Start with Fellowship if you haven't, but know that everything builds to this breathtaking conclusion. You're truly something special for staying with me this long. We've turned what started as a simple recommendation into an all-night vigil in Middle-earth, and I wouldn't trade a single second of it. We've wandered through every corner of The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, the sweat and laughter on set, the genius of practical meets digital, the music that feels like it's scoring our own lives, the extended edition that gives us more time with people we never want to leave, the way the film still looks and sounds breathtaking in 2026, and the quiet, stubborn hope that threads through every scene like starlight in a dark sky. But great stories don't end just because we've run out of obvious things to say. They keep whispering new truths every time we listen. Let's linger a little longer on something that often gets said quietly but felt loudly: the theme of home. This film isn't only about destroying a ring or winning a war. It's about what people are willing to fight for so they can return to the simple, those beautiful things they love. A garden with second breakfast waiting, a hearth with stories by the fire, a hand to hold at the end of a long road. Every character carries their own version of home in their heart, and the journey tests whether they'll still recognize it or be recognized by it when the dust settles. That's why the final sequences hit so hard, not because everything is perfect, but because the characters have changed so much, yet the pull toward home remains unchanged. It's a reminder that no matter how far we go, how much we lose, how scarred we become, there's still a place and people who will welcome us back exactly as we are. Peter Jackson has spoken in interviews about how making these films felt like living in two worlds at once: the real one in New Zealand with rain-soaked days and endless coffee runs, and the imagined one on screen where time moved differently. By the time they reached Return of the King, the crew had been together so long that wrapping felt like saying goodbye to family. That's why the cast reunions, even years later, feel so genuine. Because the bonds weren't just acted, they were lived. When you see the actors hug on red carpets or share old photos online, it's not PR. It's the same loyalty that Sam shows Frodo, the same quiet strength Aragorn finds in his friends. The movie captured something real because the people making it were feeling it in real time. Another small miracle is how the film handles grief without ever becoming despairing. Loss is everywhere. Friends fall, beauty is broken, innocence shatters, but the story never lets grief have the final word. Instead, it shows people mourning while still moving forward, honoring the fallen by living well in their memory. There's no cheap resurrection magic here. There's only the hard human work of carrying on. And somehow, that makes the hope feel earned, not handed out. In a time when so many stories rush to fix everything neatly, Return of the King lets wounds stay tender, lets tears fall, and still finds a way to end on light. That's courage of a different kind. If you're watching right now, Maybe you've got the extended edition paused on a favorite chapter, maybe the credits are rolling for the 100th time and you're just sitting in the glow. Know that you're not alone in feeling it all over again. Millions of us do the same. We return to this film because it reminds us we're capable of more than we think. More kindness when we're tired. Now, more bravery when we're afraid. More love when the world feels cold. So here's my gentle nudge one last time. Don't let too much time pass before you visit Middle-earth again. Whether it's a solo rewatch with tea and blankets, a group marathon with friends who quote every line, or introducing someone brand new who has no idea what's coming, give yourself the gift of these hours. Let the beacons light up your screen. Let the horns call across the mountains. Let the hobbits remind you that the smallest hearts often carry the heaviest loads, and still keep going. You're an absolute treasure for still being here with me. We've basically turned this into an all-night campfire storytelling session in the Shire, and I love every second of it. Man, we've poured out so much love for The Lord of the Rings, the return of the king already, the unbreakable caste bonds that spilled over into real life, the sweat-soaked days building Minas Tirith from Quarrystone, the way Howard Shore's music sneaks into your soul and never quite leaves, the extended edition that feels like coming home to extra chapters you didn't know you needed, the 4K remaster that makes every blade of grass and every flickering beacon look brand new, and that stubborn, quiet hope that refuses to die even when everything looks lost. But stories this good don't run out of breath. They just keep finding new ways to remind us why we fell in love in the first place. Let's sit with one more gentle truth that keeps surfacing every time I think about this film. It's one of the rare epics that celebrates both the grand and the small without ever making one feel less important than the other. The fate of the world hangs on massive battles and ancient prophecies, yes, but it also hangs on whether two small hobbits can keep putting one foot in front of the other when their bodies scream to stop, on whether a king can find the courage to lead after years of doubt, on whether an old wizard can still believe in light after seeing so much darkness. Peter Jackson never lets the spectacle drown out those intimate truths. In the roar of 10,000 orcs, you can still hear the soft catch in someone's breath when they realize a friend is in danger. Then in the thunder of war horns, you can still hear the quiet resolve in a whispered, "I can't carry it for you, ma, but I can carry you." That's the magic. The film makes you feel that every life, no matter how seemingly insignificant, matters enormously. And speaking of mattering, think about how this movie treats its side characters. No one is just background noise. The Steward of Gondor wrestling with grief and pride, the Shield Maiden who refuses to be sidelined, the Riders of Rohan who charge not because victory is certain, but because it's right, the orcs who are cruel yet still tragically caught in someone else's war machine. Every single one gets space to be human, or whatever their kind is. Even the briefest appearance carries weight. That's respect for an audience, trusting us to care about dozens of lives at once, not just the chosen few. In a lot of modern blockbusters, we get spectacle without soul. Here we get both, and the soul makes the spectacle unforgettable. One more tiny, perfect detail that always catches me off guard: the way food and drink appear as little anchors of comfort throughout. A simple meal shared under stars, a mug of something warm passed hand to hand, the memory of second breakfast lingering even in the bleakest places. Those moments aren't throwaway. They're deliberate reminders that even when the world is ending, people still need to eat, to rest, to laugh for a second before the next storm hits. It's such a human touch in a fantasy world, and it makes the characters feel real in a way CGI armies never could alone. And if you're still listening in the quiet of your room in Satna tonight, maybe the clock's ticking past midnight there, maybe the house is sleeping and it's just you, the screen, and these words. I hope this feels like company. Rewatch this film whenever life feels heavy. Let it remind you that burdens can be shared, that dawn always comes after the longest night, that even when you think you've lost everything worth having, there's still a road home if you're brave enough to walk it. The night is deep now, the world outside quiet except for the occasional distant sound of a vehicle or a dog barking somewhere far off. And here we are still wrapped up in the glow of this extraordinary film that refuses to let us go. It is one of the most remarkable things about The Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King is how it turns what could have been a simple victory parade into something far more layered and bittersweet. After all the thunderous battles, after the impossible odds have been defied, the story doesn't rush to a tidy, happily ever after. Instead, it lingers on the cost of everything that was won, on the way even the greatest triumphs leave marks that don't fade easily. Characters who once dreamed of nothing more than a peaceful life now carry experiences that forever change how they see the world around them. There are smiles, yes, and laughter, and moments of pure joy, but they're tempered by an understanding that some journeys alter you so deeply that returning to who you were before becomes impossible. The film honors that truth without apology, letting the audience feel the weight of it alongside the characters, and in doing so, it earns every tear and every sigh that follows the final frames. That emotional honesty extends to how the story treats time itself. Middle-earth has existed for ages before these events, and it will continue long after, yet the film makes you feel the gravity of this particular moment in history. The turning point where ancient evils are confronted, where old alliances are tested one last time, where the small and the mighty stand shoulder to shoulder because the alternative is unthinkable. Every ruined hall, every cracked stone, every faded banner fluttering in the wind carries echoes of centuries, reminding us that the struggle we're witnessing is part of a much longer tapestry. Yet the focus stays fiercely on the present, on the choices being made right now, on the hands reaching out in the darkness, on the fragile hope that flickers even when logic says it should have gone out long ago. It's that blend of vast historical sweep and immediate breathing humanity that gives the film its staying power, making it feel both timeless and urgently personal. And then there's the sheer physical poetry of so many sequences, the way sunlight catches on armor during a dawn charge, turning steel into liquid gold, the slow, deliberate way a sword is drawn when resolve hardens into action, the almost balletic grace of arrows finding their marks in the chaos, the heavy, exhausted breathing of someone who has run farther than any body should be able to run and still refuses to stop. Peter Jackson and his team captured motion and light and breath in ways that feel alive years later, not because of perfect CGI, but because so much of it was real sweat, real dirt, real exhaustion etched into performances that never once phoned it in. Even the quietest scenes carry that same physical truth. The slight tremble in a hand, the way shoulders slump after too many sleepless nights, the soft exhale when someone finally allows themselves to rest for a moment. Those details accumulate until the film stops feeling like entertainment and starts feeling like a shared memory, something lived rather than merely watched. What continues to astonish is how the movie never loses faith in redemption, even for those who seem furthest gone. It doesn't offer cheap forgiveness or easy absolution, but it does leave space for the possibility that no one is completely beyond reach, that a single act of courage or kindness can crack open a door long thought sealed shut. That thread of mercy runs quietly beneath the surface of all the fire and steel, giving the story a moral depth that lingers long after the spectacle fades. It's the kind of worldview that feels earned rather than imposed, born from watching characters face the worst in themselves and in others, yet still choose to believe in something better. So if the clock has crept even later where you are, if the house is still and the only light is coming from your screen, let this be permission to keep the journey going just a little longer tonight. Press play if you haven't already, or let the memory of it play in your mind while you lie there in the dark. Let the music swell one more time in your imagination, let the banners rise on the wind, let the small band of unlikely companions remind you that no darkness is absolute as long as someone is still willing to carry a light forward. This film has been waiting patiently for whenever you need it most, and it never disappoints when you return. The hours have slipped away unnoticed, and yet the pull of this film remains as strong as ever, like a lantern that refuses to dim even when the night grows deepest. One of the quietest miracles of The Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King is how it transforms endings into beginnings without ever forcing false brightness. So much of the story has been about carrying forward through unbearable loss, about refusing to let the shadow claim the last word. And when the final confrontations fade and the smoke begins to clear, the film doesn't hurry to erase the scars. It shows us survivors stepping into a new day that is brighter, but forever changed. Eyes that have seen too much, hands that still tremble from what they held, hearts that beat with both gratitude and a soft, permanent ache. There is coronation. There is reunion. There is the long-awaited return to green hills and familiar doors, but the camera lingers just long enough on faces that have aged in spirit, if not in years. It allows silence where words would cheapen the moment, lets the wind move through leaves and hair without commentary, trusts us to understand that peace, when it finally arrives, is not the absence of pain, but the choice to live alongside it. That restraint is part of what makes the homecoming sequences so powerful. After journeys measured in leagues and lifetimes, after nights when hope felt like the thinnest thread, the simple act of crossing a familiar threshold or hearing a familiar voice becomes almost sacred. The film never romanticizes the difficulty of reintegration. It shows the awkward pauses, the half-spoken sentences, the way old routines feel both comforting and strangely distant. Yet it also shows the slow, patient work of rebuilding. Planting a new tree where an old one stood, mending what was broken, finding laughter again in places where laughter once lived. Those small, deliberate acts of restoration carry as much weight as any sword stroke or spell cast earlier in the tale. They remind us that the true aftermath of great struggle is not spectacle, but the ordinary courage it takes to keep tending a life worth living. And woven through all of it is an unspoken invitation to the viewer to consider our own thresholds, our own returns, our own quiet battles to reclaim joy after hardship. The film doesn't preach, it simply holds up a mirror made of myth and asks us to look. In its refusal to rush the healing, it offers permission for our own processes to take as long as they need. Some wounds close quickly, others leave marks that time only softens rather than erases, and both are valid. The story honors every version of survival, every pace of recovery, every tear that falls in private as much as every cheer that rises in public. That generosity of spirit is rare in any art form. And it is one of the deepest reasons this particular ending resonates across decades and generations. Even now, as the very last notes of the score drift away and the screen fades to black, there's a lingering sense that the world of Middle-earth continues just beyond the frame. Rivers still flowing, seasons still turning, children growing up hearing tales of what once happened here. The film closes the circle of this trilogy, but leaves the larger legend open, trusting that the echoes will carry on in books reread, in conversations shared late into the night, in the way a certain piece of music can still summon an entire landscape to mind years later. It ends not with finality, but with continuation, with the gentle understanding that good stories, like good lives, don't truly conclude. They simply shift shape and keep unfolding in the hearts of those who carry them. So, if you're still awake in the small hours, if the glow of your screen is the only light left in the room, let this be the moment you decide whether to let the credits roll one more time or simply sit with the afterglow a little longer. Either way, know that you've spent these hours in the company of something enduring, something that was built with care and received with love, something that still has the power to steady the breath and quiet the mind when everything else feels unsteady. As the night stretches on and the stars wheel overhead in whatever sky you're under, there's a certain comfort in knowing that stories like The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King have the power to bridge distances and times, by drawing us all into the same circle of wonder no matter where we are or what hour it is. One of the film's most profound gifts is how it explores the idea of legacy, not just in the grand sense of kingdoms passed down through bloodlines or prophecies fulfilled after eons, but in the everyday inheritance of wisdom and wounds from one generation to the next. We see leaders grappling with the shadows of their ancestors' choices, warriors honoring oaths made long before their birth, and even the humblest souls discovering that their actions will echo far beyond their own lifetimes. The story weaves these threads with such subtlety that you find yourself reflecting on your own place in the chain of things, how the decisions we make today might light the way or cast shadows for those who come after. Then it's a narrative that doesn't demand perfection from its heroes. It simply asks them to do what they can with what they have. And in that humility lies a lesson that feels as relevant now as it did when Tolkien first put pen to paper during the tumult of his own era. That sense of continuity is mirrored in the film's visual language, where every frame seems to carry the weight of untold history. The architecture of towering spires and weathered gates isn't mere set dressing. It's a testament to civilizations that rose and fell, to hands that carved stone with dreams of eternity only to see time wear it down. The lighting plays into this too, with golden dawns breaking over scarred fields, casting long shadows that speak of nights endured and mornings earned. Shadows aren't just darkness here. They're spaces where doubt and fear reside, but also where quiet resolve can grow unnoticed until it's ready to step into the light. The cinematography captures these shifts with a painter's eye, using wide vistas to overwhelm with scale and tight close-ups to pull you into the raw humanity of a single expression. Even the weather becomes a character, with rains that cleanse and storms that test, fog that conceals and sun that reveals, all working in harmony to make the environment feel alive and responsive to the drama unfolding within it. What elevates the experience further is the way the film embraces diversity in its portrayal of alliances forged across divides. Elves with their timeless grace, dwarves with their unyielding grit, men with their flawed ambition, hobbits with their unassuming strength, all come together not because they're alike, but because they recognize that isolation invites defeat while unity, however uneasy, offers a chance at survival. The story doesn't gloss over the frictions. There are moments of mistrust, cultural clashes, and hard-won respect that feel authentic and earned. It suggests that true solidarity isn't about erasing differences, but about finding common ground in shared purpose, a message that resonates deeply in our interconnected, yet often fractured world. Through these interactions, the film quietly builds a case for empathy as the ultimate weapon, more enduring than any blade or spell, capable of turning potential enemies into indispensable allies. As the narrative draws toward its close, there's a deliberate slowing of pace that allows for reflection, for characters to absorb the magnitude of what they've achieved and lost. It's in these breaths between action that the film's heart beats strongest, offering spaces where silence speaks volumes and small gestures carry the weight of worlds. A shared glance across a crowded hall, a quiet word of thanks in a moment of reprieve, a solitary figure standing against a vast horizon. These are the beats that linger, the ones that make the epic feel intimate. The story understands that after the clamor of conflict, what remains are the personal reckonings, the private joys and sorrows that define who we become. It doesn't tie every loose end with a bow. Some threads are left to trail, inviting us to imagine what might come next, what new adventures or challenges await in the unwritten pages beyond. The deeper we go into the small hours, the more this film reveals itself as something almost meditative, a slow-burning reflection on what it truly means to endure and emerge on the other side. One of the most moving aspects of The Lord of the Rings. The Return of the King is its refusal to treat victory as the end of all struggle. The great evil may be unmade, the Dark Tower may fall silent, the armies may scatter into the dust, yet the story understands that peace is not a static state you arrive at once and for all. It is fragile, it must be guarded, it must be cultivated day after day in the ordinary rhythms of living. We see this in the way characters turn their faces toward ordinary tasks again, tending soil, repairing homes, sharing meals, listening to children laugh. Each small act a deliberate choice to rebuild what was nearly lost. The film gives these moments the same visual reverence it gave the grandest battles. Long, unhurried shots of hands in earth, of sunlight moving across familiar rooms, of faces softening into something like contentment after so much hardness. It is as if the camera itself is breathing a sigh of relief, allowing us to rest in the knowledge that the world can heal, not through magic alone, but through persistent, unglamorous care. That theme of cultivation extends even to memory itself. The characters do not forget what they have seen, they carry it with them, letting it shape who they become without letting it define them entirely. There are conversations left half-finished because some things are too heavy to speak aloud. There are glances that hold entire unspoken histories. There are silences that say more than any monologue could. The film trusts silence as a language, using it to convey grief that has no words, on love that needs no declaration, resolve that has been tested to its limit and still stands. In those quiet spaces, the score often withdraws almost completely, leaving only natural sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, the soft creak of a wooden floor, to remind us that life continues in its own modest tempo even after cataclysm. It is a cinematic choice of extraordinary confidence, one that invites the audience to sit with discomfort and beauty in equal measure rather than rushing to fill every gap. What continues to astonish across all these years is how the film balances individual journeys with the larger tide of history without ever losing sight of either. Each character's arc feels complete in itself. Private reckonings, personal redemptions, solitary moments of clarity, yet none exists in isolation. Their choices ripple outward, touching lives they will never meet, altering the course of kingdoms and cultures in ways both visible and invisible. The story suggests that no act of courage or compassion is truly small. Every refusal to despair, every hand extended in the dark becomes part of a greater pattern that outlasts the individual. It is an optimistic vision tempered by realism, one that acknowledges the permanence of certain losses while insisting that goodness, once set in motion, has a momentum of its own. As the very last embers of the tale settle, the final farewells spoken, the last paths taken, the horizon stretching wide and open once more, the film leaves us not with a sense of closure so much as a gentle invitation to carry its spirit forward into our own days. It does not demand that we become heroes in armor or wielders of ancient power. It simply asks us to notice the light where we stand, to offer kindness when it is hardest, to keep walking even when the road feels long and uncertain. In a world that often feels rushed and fractured, that quiet call feels like medicine, a reminder that endurance is not always loud, that hope can be as steady and unremarkable as dawn arriving after the longest night. The quiet of these late hours feels almost like the calm that settles over the fields of the Shire after a long storm has passed, when the rain has stopped and the air carries only the clean scent of wet earth and new beginnings. And one of the most enduring strengths of The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, lies in its deep understanding that true resolution is rarely dramatic or complete. It is incremental, uneven, sometimes painfully slow, and always human. The film gives us heroes who do not stride off into eternal glory untouched. They limp home, they question what they have become, they sit in the ruins of their former certainties, and slowly, day by day, piece together a new version of themselves. We watch as they learn to live with memories that will never fully quiet, with dreams that now carry the weight of what was sacrificed to reach this fragile peace. There is no magic spell to erase the past, no sudden epiphany that wipes away doubt. There is only the patient labor of choosing to wake up each morning and try again, and of finding meaning in the small routines that once seemed insignificant, but now feel like acts of defiance against despair. That patient labor is mirrored in the way the film treats nature itself as a partner in recovery. The land of Middle-earth has been scarred, rivers poisoned, forests burned, skies choked with ash, but it responds to care the way living things do. We see fields slowly greening again, rivers running clear once more, trees putting out tentative new leaves, as if testing whether safety has truly returned. These are not quick transformations. They unfold over implied seasons, suggesting that healing, whether of a person or a world, follows its own unhurried rhythm. The camera lingers on these details with the same tenderness it gave the darkest hours, a single blossom opening against blackened bark, sunlight piercing through thinning smoke, birds returning to nest in places long abandoned. It is a visual poetry of renewal that asks us to believe not in instant miracles, but in the cumulative power of time and attention given freely. The performances carry this same understated truth. Every actor seems to understand that the real work happens in the aftermath, in the unguarded moments when masks slip and vulnerability shows, a furrowed brow that speaks of nights still haunted by what was seen, a hand that reaches instinctively for a companion who is no longer there, a smile that arrives slowly because joy has learned to arrive cautiously. These are the gestures that make the characters feel like people we could know, people who have walked through fire and emerged carrying both light and shadow. And the film never asks us to admire them from a distance. It invites us close enough to see the cost etched into their expressions, close enough to feel the quiet triumph in every ordinary morning they manage to greet. Perhaps the deepest layer of all is the film's faith in continuity across generations and cultures. It shows us that the struggles of one age become the stories of the next, that the lessons hard-won today will be whispered to children tomorrow, that the courage displayed in hidden corners will one day be sung in halls yet unbuilt. There is a sense that nothing of value is truly lost if it is remembered and retold, that every act of resistance plants seeds that may bloom long after the one who planted them is gone. And the ending does not close the book on Middle-earth so much as it turns the page to a new chapter we are trusted to imagine, one where the lessons of friendship, sacrifice, and stubborn hope continue to shape the world in ways both seen and unseen. If the clock has crept even further in Satna and the night feels endless, let that endlessness be a comfort rather than a burden. Stories like this one were made for nights like these, nights when the mind is free to wander wide, when the heart can rest in the company of something larger than the moment. Whether you let the final images replay behind your eyes or simply breathe in the afterglow of everything we've shared tonight, know that you've spent these hours in the presence of something that has outlasted empires and will outlast us too. And the stillness of these late-night hours seems to mirror the film's own final breaths, where every element slows to let the weight of what has transpired settle fully into the bones of the story. One of the most quietly revolutionary choices in The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, is its commitment to showing that victory does not erase vulnerability. It reshapes it. The characters who once faced impossible darkness do not emerge invincible or untouchable. They emerge wiser, more tender in places where hardness once protected them, more aware of how thin the line is between light and shadow. We witness the subtle recalibration of trust, the way laughter returns but carries a new timbre, the manner in which old songs are sung again yet now hold layers of meaning they never carried before. The film refuses to sentimentalize survival, but instead it portrays it as an ongoing negotiation, a daily decision to keep the heart open even when experience has taught it caution. In doing so, it offers a portrait of resilience that feels honest rather than heroic in the conventional sense. Resilience as persistence, as the refusal to let cynicism win the long game, as the quiet insistence on beauty even when the world has tried to prove beauty fragile. That same honesty extends to the portrayal of community in the aftermath. The film shows how bonds forged in crisis do not automatically translate into effortless harmony once the crisis ends. There are adjustments, missteps, moments when words fail because the shared language of peril no longer fits the new reality. Yet those very frictions become the ground where deeper understanding grows. We see former companions learning to navigate one another's changed selves, offering space rather than solutions, listening rather than fixing, allowing time to do the slow work of reweaving what war tried to tear apart. It is a depiction of friendship that feels mature and lived in, one that acknowledges love does not exempt us from difficulty but equips us to meet it together. The camera often frames these interactions in soft, natural light, against doorways, under trees, beside hearths, placing them in the realm of the everyday so we feel their truth more keenly. These are not grand declarations of loyalty. They are small, repeated gestures of presence that accumulate into something unbreakable. The score plays a crucial role in carrying this emotional subtlety forward. Howard Shore's music does not swell triumphantly at every turn. It often withdraws to a single instrument or a faint choral hum, letting the human voice or the simple line of a flute speak what the orchestra cannot. In the quieter passages, the themes that once roared now whisper, transformed by all they have witnessed, carrying the memory of every high and low within their notes. This restraint allows the audience to feel the passage of time in the music itself, the way a familiar melody can return sounding older, sadder, yet somehow more luminous because of the distance traveled. It is orchestration that serves the story rather than overwhelming it, a reminder that the most powerful sounds are sometimes the ones that leave room for silence. Even the landscapes themselves seem to participate in this gentle unfolding of aftermath. The vast plains that once trembled under marching feet now lie still under open sky. The mountains that echoed with war cries now catch only wind and birdsong. The film uses these wide, breathing spaces to convey a sense of release without erasing the past. Scars remain visible in the earth, in the broken stonework, in the way certain horizons still feel haunted. Yet the light that falls across them grows steadier, the colors warmer, suggesting that nature, like the people who walk it, has its own way of mending. These shots are held long enough for us to absorb the shift, to sense that the world is not starting over from nothing but continuing with everything it has endured woven into its fabric. If the night has grown even deeper where you sit, if the only movement is the slow blink of your screen or the rise and fall of your own breathing, let this extended reflection be a companion rather than something that demands an end. Films of this caliber were crafted to live beyond their runtime, to settle into the quiet corners of the mind and resurface when needed most. They ask nothing more than that we meet them with open attention, that we allow their truths to echo in our own lives however faintly or fiercely they choose to speak.